1, 2, 3.
Okay. Hi, how's it going?
I'm Madeline.
And I'm Michael.
And today is a very special day. We're joined by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guests called Louie, M.A. Santana, known as my stepmom, godmother, Cupcake, my papa, Joe Sam Santana, and Scarlett. So, how are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Doing
Cheers.
good.
Great to have you guys here.
Cheers. What are you drinking?
Caveman.
You
Extra
look,
BO.
you look awfully dressed up today.
Thank you.
Yeah. What are you?
We'll be talking about this later, but I dressed up as a character named Eivor from
A little bit this way, please.
Please, so the audience can see.
from Valhalla. It's a Viking video game, and I just felt really compelled to dress like this, especially because I'm going to be talking about mental illness today. Thank you.
She did this herself. She came out of the room. She's like, "I'm ready, guys." So, is there anything you'd like to share about, like, regarding mental illness and stuff? We're gonna talk about that, and I remember always having deep conversations about them when it came to like mental illness and like their life and their story, which is really cool. And
we actually, it's really cool that when we have these conversations about mental health and the things that we go through as a family, you know, when this podcast isn't rolling, we get together, we sit at a table, we'll sit outside, inside during like dinner and meals, and we'll just have conversations about our day and just like, you know, the things that we can all share and relate to, because we feel like it opens us up more to just like understanding each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So, regarding mental illness, how do you feel like you connect with that? You know, like, how do you feel like in your life that's something that has weighed you down or brought you up? You know, is there anything that you have to say about?
Well, according to mental illness,
It's a very broad term.
it goes way, way, way back with different things that's happened in people's lives. Like, and it has a lot to do with your upbringing. It has a lot to do with what you watch and what you do in life, like play video games and different stuff like that. But for me, I had a rough childhood, and I was abused. I was molested and beaten, and I was a product of foster homes. And so I had a lot of confusion in my head because I wasn't taught properly how to be either a man or just a person in general. I just had to figure it all out on my own. And I was diagnosed with bipolar when I was, I think I was 19 or 20, and they just automatically gave me medicine. Boom, you're gonna take medicine, take lithium, I think was the first one, and they didn't really talk to me. Like, I never actually talked to a therapist, and they never really cared to see why I was feeling this way. They just automatically labeled me this way. And then I said, okay, and just started taking medicine, and I didn't feel better. I never felt better. It was always confusing to me. And and the first therapist I talked to started crying when I told her what was going on with me, and I was like, why the fuck are you crying? It's like, you're supposed to be helping me and you're over here crying. So I just walked out, and I was angry and whatnot. But it was an interesting experience going through that. And eventually I stopped taking medicine and just learned to deal with what I'm going through.
What point in life did you feel like you're like, wait a minute, this medicine isn't helping? Like, I feel like this is like just throwing me in a spiral, and this isn't the answer. Like, what point in your life did you realize that?
I remember when you were about 7 months old, and they had me on Seroquel, Klonopin, Depakote, Wellbutrin, lithium. No, I wasn't doing lithium anymore. I wasn't smoking lithium anymore. But they had me on that, and I had went to sleep, put you to bed, went to sleep, and I vaguely remember you crying. And then I woke up the next morning like, what the heck? And you were sick, and I couldn't get up because of the medicine that they were giving me. So I decided that morning, fuck that. I'm not taking this medicine anymore because I wasn't able to take care of you. That wasn't good, because a week later I ended up in a mental hospital because you're not supposed to come off of these medicines like that, and I did.
Wait, is that the same story that you told me about the mental hospital where your dad got you out? Or is
No,
that
that's a different one.
I didn't know that.
And the lithium was given for the bipolar disorder?
Yeah.
So wait, okay, so, and then when you had the conversations with the doctor, did they ask any questions about like, are you taking care of anybody? Or is there any like circumstances to where like you might not be able to take this medication? Or did they just say like, oh
no, yeah, they didn't anything like that. As a matter of fact, I was talking to the doctor, and I remember looking at him while I'm talking and telling him my issues, what's going on in my head, because that's all I wanted to do was talk to somebody. It's like I got this shit in my head. I understand why it's there, and I just want to talk to somebody so somebody can help me figure it out. And I'm talking to him, and he's writing down on a piece of paper, and I looked over at the paper, and I was like, what are you writing? He goes, okay, you just need to take this prescription. I was like, were you listening to anything I had to say? Yeah, I was listening, but go ahead and take this prescription and come back next week. And I was like,
that's bullshit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because they didn't really care. It was just like,
That's what a lot of people, what I learned from hearing from other people, and I like talking to you about it too, because you gave me a different perspective, is that so many people think that therapists and, what is it called? The other doctor, what is he? Psychiatrists, yeah. They just listen, they just don't like really care or connect, or like psychiatrists just give you medication.
Right.
And you said that it's rare, but I find people in my life like Rebecca who actually cares and listens to me.
Yeah.
And that just gives hope. I'm sorry, but like that rarely happens, but just to know that happened to you is just like shows that you could get help and people will listen. So
yeah.
That's really cool.
There's definitely help out there, and you have to see, let me just break down something first. So there's a thing called Western medicine, which is like a general practitioner. It's, like a chiropractor or a foot doctor or an eye doctor. That's all Western medicine. But then there's holistic, doctors and therapists and things like that, where they don't just instantly prescribe medication. They try to work with you through therapy, meditating, supplements if need be. And I would always suggest that if somebody feels like they need to start taking medication, or they basically start taking medication, that they try a natural route first.
Yeah.
Because the way Western medicine was designed, from my experience, was that when you go to see a psychiatrist, they're supposed to be also working with a therapist. And they're, trading notes, and they're treating you as a whole. And that's what holistic means, is being treated as a whole. But as far as Western medicine goes, the original, the way it was supposed to work was that the therapist and psychiatrists were talking together and, working on things like diet, sleep, exercise, trauma, those kind of things. Medicine should not be the first go-to. Now, are there cases when people need medication? Absolutely. I have been in about 25 plus mental hospitals, and I've seen people who need medication at the point they're at. I don't know how they always got there, but the point they're at, they need medication, usually schizophrenic people, or drug-induced psychosis people.
Yeah.
They need to quiet what's going on here, stop the racing and all of that. And just heal, through diet and those kind of things. But now it's become what they call 10-minute medication management appointments. And you literally walk in, most of them, not my doctor that I have now is completely a blessing. He's the best doctor I've ever had, and same with my therapist. But the way it's supposed to work is that, okay, let's say you need medication because you're so anxious you can't deal with your problems. So the way it's designed is get on an antidepressant, talk to a therapist, but not be too numb. It might just help you to calm down so you can actually talk and work through it.
Okay.
And then you taper off of it, and it would work. The system worked. But now with the 10-minute medication management appointments, you go in, they don't want to hear how you're doing. They don't care. Most of them.
Yeah.
And especially because I have state insurance, you just get crappy doctors and crappy therapists.
Right.
Some of them have good hearts. Some of them are in it for the right reasons. But when you write a new script for a patient, you get paid a lot.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of times doctors are like, oh, that's not working for you. Well, let's try this. And one time I was in the hospital, I have a memory of a girl, and I said, why are you here? And she said, I'm suicidal, or I was suicidal really bad. And I was like, okay. And I was like, they have you on medications, because she was constantly going like this.
Yeah.
And her eyes were really big and everything. And she said, I feel more suicidal
Wow.
Now that they have me on 7 medications.
Dude, 7?
7 medications because she's suicidal. They just keep adding things to keep her numb.
It's like she can't breathe.
Totally. How do you work through things when you're that numb?
Mm-mm.
You know, it's just nearly to crazy.
Dude, do you have any advice for someone who's like trying to seek counsel or seek help, like to find the right person to talk to?
Absolutely. Don't stop until you find somebody that there's a connection.
Yeah.
There's a safety. There's a relatable kind of relationship, and let it grow. But it is very hard to find that.
Yeah.
In my experience, especially with state insurance, and literally people come in off the streets. They're homeless, or they're going crazy at home, or they're, I've seen doctors in mental hospitals, lawyers, sorry, what was the question?
No, I was just saying, like, is there any advice that you'd give to someone that they want to seek help, but they don't know how to find the right person?
Yes. First of all, don't think that medication is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Don't think therapy is a bad thing. But remember that you're your best advocate because you know yourself the best. And that's something that somebody told me that I'll never forget. It's like, you are literally your best advocate. But building that trust with someone that you connect with is very important. And the problem is it's very hard to find.
Yeah.
So
it may take a while, yeah.
And there's something else you could add to that. People look at bipolar or anxiety or anger issues or all these things as bad things. First of all, you have to embrace it. You have to say, I have anxiety, or I get manic, or I get this, or I get that. If you look at it as a bad thing, it's always going to be in your mind as a bad thing. This is horrible. You're a horrible person. This and that. I got to take medication, or I got to do drugs, or I got to do something to make it go away. When you embrace it, when you say, I have anxiety, I have whatever addiction you have, you embrace it. Don't accept it as like, this is the way, it's going to be. You can accept it as, this is a challenge, and there's a way to overcome it. But I have it, and it's okay. I'm not going to abuse it when it comes to drugs. I'm going to embrace my anxiety, or I'm going to embrace my anger issues, and I'm going to attempt to make it better by getting different tools, going to a therapist, finding the right doctor. It's not about taking medicine automatically. It's like, that's all people want to do. Take medicine, make it go away,
right. Yeah.
And you turn 50 years old and you're like, never dealt with it, and the more shit that goes in your head throughout your life, and you never deal with it. If you don't learn those tools to deal with your anxiety, with your anger, with your drug addiction, with whatever it is, it's never going to get better. It's just going to get worse as you keep drowning yourself in whatever medication you're taking.
Interesting.
Can I say something about that?
Of course.
Okay. So, I agree with you, but there's also, like, in a perfect world, people would, when they are instantly traumatized, they instantly go through something, go see a therapist. That's a perfect world. But by the time people actually need medication, not everyone, but in certain situations, they're so screwed up that they actually do need medication. But if we had the system working the way it should, always talking and working through, because that is really, there's so much, like, you take the sting out of the disease when you talk to somebody. That's the first step that people, like therapists and doctors, will say is, talking about it first. Because, right, you can't treat someone unless they tell you what's going on.
Yeah, that's true.
And they also can't treat you if you're really over-medicated. And
That's right.
bipolar, I read this book. It's by Dr. Carolyn Leaf, and it's called Turn On Your Brain or something like that. And she actually, she's worked with so many people, but she worked with somebody who was in a vegetable state. They said,
what does that mean, a vegetable state?
Like, they're permanently, what is it? Like, they're permanently
Brain fucked.
pretty much, they're brain dead.
Wow.
But they're still on the machines and things like that. She actually, they were telling this family, just pull the plugs. There's no hope. She's never going to come out of this. And Dr. Leaf worked with her so much that she now has, like, a master's degree. And, like,
oh my gosh,
just
man.
because of knowing how the brain works. She's an ex-brain surgeon. But I just want to touch on bipolar, because what I've learned in the research that I've done is...
I'm sorry, but Scarlett's snoring right now. It's so funny.
Excuse me!
Excuse me,
It's
Charlie.
no time for sweeping. We're having a conversation.
Jeez. So with bipolar,
I'm sorry
Saying
about
this
that.
topic is putting her to sleep.
the reason bipolar happens is because of a groove in your brain. What happens is when you're traumatized, especially at a young age, when you're so moldable and you're learning everything, and a trauma happens to you, your brain actually separates. The left side of the brain and the right side of the brain separates. So what happens is as you get older, you start having mood swings to where you're manic or you're depressed, and that's what they call bipolar.
Wow.
But it's most of the time it's trauma induced, and that's where people need therapy and they need to work on things.
That's where a lot of mental illness comes from.
And now there's like bipolar 1, 2, 3, and you're just like,
are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, are you more manic? Are you more depressed? It's like you're traumatized,
Do you think it's all the same thing? Like,
and by that point, people might need medication, but medication was never designed to be on for a long period of time, unless you're schizophrenic. Because I've seen that illness in full effect, and they need, I'm trying to think of antipsychotics are the medications that they give to schizophrenic people.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Which something that has helped us because we find out that we have PTSD, and they're finding that instead of calling it bipolar, it's actually PTSD. If something traumatic has happened to you in your life and it causes you, like Michael said, these different things to happen, they're manic and sad and happy and freaking ready to kill the world and do all this wonderful stuff, and it's because of the PTSD.
Wow.
So there's something that she's doing and I'm doing too, and you've done it once.
Yeah, it's called EMDR.
EMDR.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, it's something that really helps like the brain waves. Can you explain that? I feel like you know it.
Well, what it does is there's many ways of doing it, but the way we do it is.
Wait, let me say something just really fast before you say it. Trauma. When you have a trauma happen to you and the left side, the brain separates, it also puts grooves in your brain.
Yeah.
Like thinking grooves. So.
Like pathways.
Like pathways, so that you think negatively or you have anxiety or these things, it's pretty crazy, but
it's like when
it's a little groove in your
when something happens to you, like if I were to confront you and we would get in a disagreement and you had PTSD, you automatically would react a certain way, fight or flight. I'm going to either fight you or I'm going to run away. It's just something that happens because those grooves, those pathways in your brain have solidified into this is what you're going to do. Do it now.
Right.
It's nothing. There's no thought process behind it. There's nothing that happens.
Do it. It's not
so
control.
what EMDR does, it's a couple of paddles in your hand, and one vibrates, the other one vibrates, one vibrates, the other one vibrates, and it goes back and forth while you're talking about your trauma that happened to you.
So you're opening the brain back up.
So you're opening your brain back up.
That could be dangerous.
And then they talk about what would you do different? Or how does that make you feel? Where do you feel that at? So what it does is it creates a new pathway. So the next time somebody confronts you with whatever that is, that makes you want to fight or flight, now you have a third thing to do. At the beginning, you don't think of it, but it's fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or flight. That's what you're going to do. But eventually you start thinking, okay, I'm going to start working through this. And that pathway starts being longer and longer. And fight or flight are still there, but that pathway is no longer being walked upon. That pathway is no longer being used. So you're going off into another direction going, I'm going to walk away from this and have a blessed day and see ya. And your reaction is different.
Like IE on that is just that.
What's IE mean?
It means
an extension?
Basically.
Yes, what's your IE?
I forgot what I was saying. What
I'm sorry.
Cut each other off. See what happens.
Oh yeah, you're
Cut each other
creating
off, see what happens.
new pathways. So for instance, if I go to the store, because this is something I struggle with, when I go to a store, I can get triggered by somebody because I think I know what they're thinking, and so then I have to make sure about it, and it's something I'm working on because it's not normal. And but in those situations when they come up, my therapist, who has gone to the store with me because she wants to see the way I
thought
think
that was really cool.
when I get triggered. And so what she's doing is when I get triggered, she's giving me a new thought process and how to deal with that. And so I may not get it every time, but the hope is that the more you practice that, the more you're able to go, okay, this person doesn't know what I'm thinking. You know, they're 99% of the time, they're not thinking
0.9.
anything.
We have this thing called 99.9% of the time that it doesn't matter, and so she shouldn't go up to them, and it's probably just a look that they're giving him, her.
And some people are giving you looks. Sometimes people
it's true.
are, but
I
it
got
doesn't.
nasty looks, yeah.
Did you just step on a Cheeto?
No, I think that was a noise.
I was pushing the Caymans to the side.
I mean, but the thing about the nasty look that we talked about is that, like, even though they give a look to you, it may not be for you. It may be something that they've gone through throughout the day.
Right.
Like, they could just got off of work, you know, they could have been stressed at home.
Right.
Other things that exist in their world that don't in yours could just correlate and actually, like, come together. And when your worlds both collide, one's going through something, the other one's going through something. It just depends on who's going to fight or flight first.
And like we also talked about how they could also have a mental illness and they could also like, get triggered.
Get triggered themselves.
We don't know the situation, which is really dangerous.
Yeah.
And what I think when somebody looks at me, I think, man, they must think I'm hot. And it's like, I'm gorgeous. So I'll walk through the thing, you know, and that's what I kind of try to tell her, because my wife is absolutely gorgeous. She's like probably the most beautiful woman in the world.
Oh, good.
And
Her name's Ava.
And when that happens, I try to tell her, like, they're probably looking at you because you're really gorgeous.
That's
you're
true.
really beautiful.
That's
and they're
very
like probably a little jealous or just envious or they just look at you as gorgeous. And it's like, it's something that she has to work through because of the trauma that's happened to her from her father. From when she was a child, always thinking she's done something wrong, always thinking something's wrong. I'm sorry, always apologizing.
And that what you're doing is kind of like creating that new pathway of not it being like, you know, something that's either just one direction or another.
That's what I was saying, is Rebecca's teaching me the tools to when that happens, I can go, wait, that's not a proper thought.
Yeah.
But the thing is it's just, it can be very debilitating because you're just like, you get frustrated, like, why am I not, like, I'll go, I've been doing really good, and I don't know what I was going to say, the main thing that helps me is knowing my identity in Christ. For me, that's been the most helpful thing, because when I say, that person doesn't even know me, like, they don't know what I'm going through, who cares if they, you know, whatever they think, they don't know me. That one gets me out of it, like, a lot of the time.
That's really
I think it'd get me out of it if they walked in, they're like, hi, Emily. It's like, we see you come to the store every so often. Just like start talking to people. We know you're
wanting to talk to you for so long. You're so beautiful.
We've been waiting for you to come up to us so we can have a conversation.
Remember that time, I don't know if you mind me saying, but remember that time in Target where people saw you go up to another person and say like, hey, I'm sorry you looked at me a certain way. And then we were in the checkout lane, they said, hey, we noticed that you you have this same like illness or like something like, what did they say to you specifically?
We get it, we totally understand.
Yeah, like this
like,
random group of people were like, we get it, like we get what you did and we understand where you're coming from.
And that kind of helped me, but it also was like, gosh, that's really dysfunctional. Because, you know what I'm saying?
Someone just walking up to you and telling you that
we understand.
Yeah, it was kind of like,
My balls was hot.
I understand.
Understand, my balls was on.
But all you can do at the end of the day is do your best, have a good therapist, have a good psychiatrist, have good people around you that understand you, and you know, it's not something that you're just like a total freak because of it. There's a reason for it. There's a trauma that's there. You know, someone hurt you in your past, or you know, where you think this certain way, and honestly, God wants to help. He wants to help bring you out of it because he wants you to be free.
Yeah.
And it can happen. It's possible. It's definitely 100% possible to be free.
That's awesome. It's very true.
And don't beat yourself up along the way.
Yeah, and if you do, then grow from it. You know.
Yeah.
Understand that you don't have to beat yourself up. Like you've been such a help for me throughout like my whole struggles, and she struggles with anxiety, and I'm struggling with anxiety, and just going to them both because we all struggle with anxiety.
We
just look at
our dogs.
Dude, seriously, my dog Louie struggles with anxiety, poor thing. But yeah, it just opened my eyes. So like, if you could look at yourself as priceless, then that's just a huge step to like.
Really?
Shush!
Shush.
You're
How much are you worth?
Wait, I was
He's
saying
present.
something.
That's just a huge step to accepting yourself. So, yeah, we're closing out this video today in a wholesome note and just like, I don't know, it was nice. Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
We'll probably stop it when you're popping.
Queen!
We got you.
So you guys have a good night. We love you guys. We'll come back next week with more videos.
Yeah.
Would you like to say bye to them?
Bye.
Good night. Would you guys... exactly.
Make it like a high, make it like a
not
high
that
needle.
one. We'll love each other.
Good night.
You don't like make it like a high?